Cervone. I'm going to talk to you a little bit today about pasture management and how to tell if your pastures are ready for grazing and what the content of the pasture is and how we might improve it. I'm on a client's farm right now for their hunter jumpers. It is the end of April and their pastures are looking pretty lush, but their horses are still down in Florida. So first thing I did was I went through using the sward height method of checking the heights of the pastures. We want to let the horses start to graze the pastures when they're about 6 to 8 inches. Just going through this whole pasture here, I did 25 samples, measuring the height in 25 different areas, zigzagging through the pasture, and I've come up with an average of 5.76. I want to show you my method of measuring. Instead of using a plastic bottle, as we were shown in the video, I like to use, because I'm not a proponent of single-use plastics, I like to use my own method, which is my hand from fingertip to fingertip is 8 inches. So this is, everyone, if you know, measure your hand from fingertip to fingertip and see what it is. Also, my hand measures 4 inches this way. So I can use my own body instead of a single-service plastic to measure the fields. So I'm 4 inches like you measure your horses in hands. So went through, we come out with an average of 5.76. Although the pastures look very lush, there's some areas that are 8 inches, other areas are only 4 inches, 5 inches, and 6 inches. So I prefer to let this pasture grow just a little bit longer till it meets an average of 8 inches before we start the horses in it. The next analysis that we did is I did another zigzag through the pasture and to measure what each area of the field was. So I've got a column here for grasses, weeds, bare ground, and other. This is a really lush pasture and very healthy. So our bare grounds are really concentrated around the horses running the fence line, which is typical, and then also right around the gate. So the rest of the pasture, I come up with 19 out of 25 are grasses, 4 out of 25 are weeds, and the weeds are, there's not a lot, and it's really kind of limited to pokeweed, plantain, the broadleaf plantain, and the thinleaf plantain, and dandelions, which the horses kind of like the dandelions, and only a couple spots of bare ground, and that was really limited to these high traffic areas. So I come up with 76% of grass. I also put into the grass, there's a lot of legumes in this field, so I put in with the grasses the legumes. So I've got 76% grass and legumes, 16% weeds, 8% bare ground, and 0% other. I think those the grasses would be higher if I did 100 samples, but I only did 25. Next that we're going to look at is some of the content of this field and what's actually in the field. So we've got really several pasture grasses here. I've got first is this real soft grass. It's shorter than the rest, it's very fine blades, and it's kind of dead underneath, and that's our creeping bent grass. Very soft, easy to identify. The other is I've got my tall fescue, which has a very round stem. It's shiny, and when I run my fingers in the opposite direction of the leaf, it's kind of sticky, a little bit prickly. And that's another favorite of the horses. That's the tall fescue. And then I have some in this field, so let me see if some orchard grass. Orchard grass is also easy to identify. It's kind of a bluish color, and it's kind of rubbery, more flexible, not as stiff as the tall fescue, and the stems are flat. So when you pull the leaves off, they are kind of in a V shape at the where the leaves meet the stem, and then a couple weeds. I talked about the dandelion. Everybody knows what dandelions are, and then the plantain. which is pretty common in this field, though there's not a lot of it. But that is the plantain there. It's got ridges, lines, and then there's an occasional broad-leafed one, which is, I call it pigweed, but it's a little bit broader, more of a rounded leaf, a little bit shinier than the broad, and that's real common in my own pastures. There's a lot of clover legumes in this pasture, but everything looks good and healthy for the horses, not high volumes of anything. My only recommendations here is really the only areas that are not in the best health are the areas where there's a lot of foot traffic. So I would say, you know, we can keep the horses, there's only one gate for the horses to come in and out of, but we could just cordon off that area to just let the horses in, keep the foot traffic off of that area except when they're coming and going. If you wanted to do the same with the fence line, you can cordon off this area and let that area rest from foot traffic for the horses for a while. Otherwise, it's in really good shape, and in probably another week or two, it's going to be ready for grazing. So we would let the horses graze this down to 3 inches and then take them off of it and let this pasture rest again until it reaches 8 inches. And that's it for today.